Hello, divine creations, divine marvels, children of God. Thank you so much for joining in today. It's another day. Here we are, these limitless eternal souls on a limitless eternal journey. And here we are, one more day inside these beautiful bodies. One more day on this beautiful earth. Such a unspeakably precious gift. And according to Greta Hausler, who knew Bruno Groening well, Bruno Groening once said that to be on this planet is such a rare thing that there are literally trillions of souls lined up waiting for the opportunity to come here. And we'll look at a little bit today why it's such a precious opportunity. But first and foremost, let's begin to, if you haven't already, let's begin to take in divine healing force. Please sit with your legs uncrossed, feet flat on the floor, hands on your legs, palms facing upwards, back in a relaxed upright position, not slouched over, not overly stiff, but just upright, and if possible, not leaning against the back of your chair. And if you need to, that's okay. We just do the best we can. And when you're ready, please close your eyes and hand over all burdens, all worries, fears, illness, everything not good to our dear friend Bruno Groening or to a spiritual helper whom you trust. If you don't have a spiritual helper, you can always try offering things to Bruno Groening, or you can just offer them to life, to love, or to God. Handing over everything not good, and then thinking of something that makes you smile, something that brings you joy, and then begin to observe the body, observe your body, having the will, the intention to take in good life energy. Noticing what you feel, having the intention to take in good energy. Noticing what you feel, taking in the good. Aligning ourselves with God, with the good, with goodness itself. I'd like to welcome everyone who's joined in, and welcome to everyone watching this video, and to anyone who's new. So, what's this all about? Well, from my point of view, it's about three things. It's about how a very simple, direct way to take in healing life energy, and it's about some really simple, straightforward spiritual principles to navigate how to navigate life, how to navigate life here on this earth. And it's about that guy. His name's Bruno Groening, the person with the black um, frame around him, and he's the one who taught these teachings I'm sharing. And um, so, some of you may have noticed when this I named this live broadcast "Healing and Salvation Gathering." Oh, salvation! What is that all about? Well, Bruno Groening spoke about salvation. In fact, the German word, when describing this energy we're taking in, he combined two German words. One is Heil, and the next one's Strom, and he combined them together, Heilstrom. And Heil has many meanings, but one of the primary meanings is salvation. So, this energy we're taking in can accurately be called the energy of salvation or the energy that saves. But what does salvation mean? Most of it, as soon as I hear that word, before I found Bruno Groening's teachings, my mind went instantly to religion, which the religion I was raised in, Protestant Christianity, specifically Methodism, but a little more broadly, Protestant Christianity believes that salvation means that when you believe the right thing, once you die, then you go to heaven. And that's what salvation meant, where you would be happy and free forever. And you can that's a there's variation, but from a religious point of view, that tends to be what salvation means, is that at the end of this life, going to heaven. Well, Bruno Groening spoke of salvation, but he spoke of it from a spiritual point of view, and he gave very straightforward straightforward ideas about what he meant. This is from the book Wisdom of Life, Volume 1, page 85. It's just about one thing, really, about that which is purely divine, which is inside man, and that is his soul. Because it is through his soul, it is through his soul, man has the pure divine reception, the reception of the divine transmission. So that's what we started off this time together doing, receiving the divine transmission. And that happens because we're actually not a body, we're a soul. And part of the capacity of our soul, not our soul, of us as a soul, is to receive this energy. Bruno Groening said, to save the soul, dear friends, this purely divine soul, that it is not grasped by Satan's claws, that is what this is all about. So my understanding is the beginning and end of what Bruno Groening taught was about salvation from a spiritual point of view, meaning that the soul can be clouded over. Here he says clawed, clutched, dragged around by evil, and that salvation is the freeing of all evil from the soul. So, but to do this requires faith in God and in the good. However, many people have lost their faith. And one of the main reasons why I struggled with faith, and why I've even struggled with faith since I've been on this path, is this question of life seems unfair sometimes. Or the age-old question, why do bad things happen to good people? Well, Bruno Groening gave some very simple answers, that we reap what we sow. If we experience something bad, it's because of something bad that we have done in the past. And then it's not a punishment, but it's actually a rebalancing and an opportunity for us to learn. And some people can accept that a little bit, but still, there's this way in which, as a human being, not remembering what we did and not understanding why negative things happen to ourselves or each other, life without the proper perspective, life does really seem unfair. But Bruno Groening gave, in a very specific story, he really gave a perspective for us to adopt about life. And so this is from the book Powers of the Spirit, and this is on page 216. So Bruno here is talking to Freddie Hosp, the author of this book, and Freddie was from a very early age had severe health trouble to the point where he wasn't expected to live long before he met Bruno Groening. And I'm going to summarize a little bit. And Bruno Groening said, in essence, what happened is the midwife who was taking care of him right after he was born um, really took bad care of him to the point where Freddie was actually injured moments after his birth by this midwife. Now, here's what Bruno Groening has to say about that. Yes, the woman was the midwife. The woman was controlled by evil because she knew no respect for life. In this way, she has also caused serious harm to still other newborn babies who have been helplessly delivered up to her. A person of evil will do such, and they should never have been allowed to take up the profession of midwife. Today, so that is 1958, this woman is very seriously afflicted, since all the bad that she has been passing on her whole life now is working itself out in her own body. So let's put aside first what happened to Freddie. And all the negativity and problems she caused, she's now having to deal with. And what an interesting phrase. That evil is now working itself out of her body. But still, it seems unfair. All these newborn children, seriously, in Freddie's case, almost killed by this woman. It seems unjust and unfair. And it's like, how could God allow something like that? Well, here's the answer, friends. And I believe, in essence, that this is actually one of, if not the most important thing that Bruno Groening ever taught, because it can change our whole attitude about life. And here it is. Yes, dear Freddie. Yes, dear Freddie may never be angry with this midwife. Listen, never. For in your case, she was only the instrument to fulfill your destiny, which had been ordained by God. For it is precisely a bodily limitation. Freddie, even though he experienced many healings, he stayed in his wheelchair and still needed a lot of help. Many things healed, but not that. And so again, I'll back up. For in your case, she is only the instrument to fulfill your destiny, which has been ordained by God. For it is precisely a bodily limitation that is necessary for your mental, spiritual development, since you would otherwise have done everything else, but you would not have gone the divine way that was preordained. If you understand your life in this way, you will then work out the necessary spiritual knowledge for yourself in this present life and also put it to practice. As long as you do not abandon this path, which has been willed by God, you will always have people around you who will help you in such a way that you need never experience your bodily limitations as a failing. Therefore, you must have no anxiety about your future. Take everything that comes as an opportunity for learning and grow by means of it. You will then remember everything that you are learning now in your next life and in a healthy body. Help many people. So, again, that's from Powers of the Spirit, page 216. So, I have a lot to say on it, and that's a lot. So, let's take a little time and really take in Bruno Groening's words, continue to take in this good energy, noticing what you feel. taking in the good. Reflecting on the words we just heard. So, wow. So here's this thing that seems horrific, and Bruno goes into, if anyone goes back and reads this, he goes into very vivid detail about how Freddie's body was really abused by this woman. And it seems awful. I mean, what could be more awful than a newborn child being so neglected and literally like his head was slammed against a wash bay? Like, ugh, it was really, it seems like the most unfair, horrible thing in the world. And Bruno Groening points out here and elsewhere that anything negative that happens to us, it's from something negative we did in the past. And Bruno Groening points out something that's completely takes the awfulness out of the tragedy, out of this event. Here's what he says. He said, and as we have the habit of being angry. Like, how dare that woman? How dare she neglect and harm a child? But and of course, can you imagine being Freddie Hosp and hearing this? Um, can you imagine, Bruno Groening sitting in front of you and saying, "Yeah, the reason why you're in a wheelchair and why you had all these health issues and almost died is because right after you were born, the midwife like totally neglected you, totally and injured you." Almost killing you. And then Bruno Groening adds to all of that, yes, dear Freddie may never be angry with this midwife. Listen, never. For in your case, she was only the instrument to fulfill your destiny, which had been ordained by God. For it is precisely a bodily limitation that is necessary for your own mental, spiritual development, since you would otherwise have done everything else, everything other than focusing on mental, spiritual development. But you would have not gone the divine way that was preordained. I'll skip a little bit. And then again, Bruno says, take everything that comes as an opportunity for learning and grow by meaning of it. You will then remember everything you are learning now in your next life. And in a healthy body, you will help many people. So look at this woman who did this great, seemingly great evil. And Bruno even says, in essence, it was an evil act and she was ruled by evil. Actually was doing God's will. That Freddie Hosp needed. Maybe that's too strong of a statement, was doing God's will, but was carrying forth, Bruno says, what was preordained by God for Freddie. She was literally giving him what he needed for his spiritual development. That's already planned. It's like what was going to happen to him in this life is just part of a plan to get him ready for his next life. That's how God works. Sees the big picture beyond our human comprehension. And here's the very short version of everything I just read and said. Bruno Groening said, this is Powers of the Spirit, page 130. But I say to you, faith moves mountains. Only have faith. The state of the world is also steered by God. Only things that serve as a lesson for human beings are allowed to happen. Okay, let's break that down. Only things that serve as a lesson for human beings are allowed to happen. That means if something happens, let's back up. It says the state of the world is steered by God. So God's in charge of everything. Only things that serve as a lesson are allowed to happen. Only means all. Everything that happens is an opportunity. It's a spiritual opportunity. I'm not saying it's a comfortable one. I'm not saying it's a fun one. We all, as the saying goes, we all have our crosses to bear. However, what we need to keep in mind is that these crosses, these burdens, are actually ordained by God. They're fair, and they're serving for our spiritual development. And a plan that's beyond a plan for our spiritual development, and I believe ultimately our salvation, that is beyond our comprehension. So if we can look at every negative thing that happens as an opportunity to learn, as a lesson, and in essence as a gift from God, can completely shift our view of life. Right? Because when life is good, we're happy. We love God. It's like, thank you, God. Thank you for these blessings. And then when something negative happens, we're like, oh, that's not fair. That shouldn't have happened. And then we're very unhappy. But what if it could be, when things are great, thank you, God. Thank you for all these blessings. And when things aren't so great, oh, this is hard. And thank you, God, for this opportunity to learn and grow. And as Bruno Groening said, our life here on this earth is an opportunity to free ourselves from evil and to learn so much. And that's why he said trillions of souls are lined up to be here on this planet, to face these burdens, to bear these crosses. Now I get to practice what I preach. We have a dog in our neighborhood that is so loud and barks so many times. And I was resentful for quite some time about it until I finally just was like, okay, this has got to be a gift from God. This has got to be a lesson from God. And I'm starting to see all the blessings and all the lessons and all the learning. Is it comfortable? No. Is it the way of learning I would have chosen? No. But I'm not in charge. God is. And that's a good thing. Because God is a lot wiser than me. So let's reflect on all this and continue to take in good energy. Noticing what we feel, trying on. It's almost like a pair of glasses to look at everything as a gift, as a lesson. Taking in the good. handing over any negative thoughts. Taking on the idea that God is actually in charge. Taking on the view that we are in school. And God's the headmaster, the head teacher, directing everything. Thank you to everyone who's watched this video, and thanks to everyone who's joining in live. Bruno Groening said, trust, confidence, faith in the good, which is one way that he spoke of God, the good. Faith, trust, confidence in the good is the foundation, the fundamental principle, idea, the groundwork of divine order. And what I've discovered is, as I said, we go through our days and good things happen. And we're like, God is great. But if something bad happens, we're like, oh, life is no good. This shouldn't be happening. We've lost our faith in that moment. So trust in the good means trusting in the good completely. Absolutely trusting. I read this idea in another spiritual book, and it said, all things serve the good. Only the ego sees exception to this. And that's not so different from what Bruno Groening himself said. Bruno said, how does that old saying go? Whoever trusts in God's right hand has not built on sinking sand. That is the truth. That is reality. Everything else is just the self-deception and arrogance of ignorant human beings. And that was from Powers of the Spirit, page 130. So let's close with a minute of silence, really taking in, filling ourselves up with this good energy, asking God, asking Bruno to help us learn this fundamental lesson, this foundational lesson of complete trust in God, the good, life, existence. trusting that we're on a path to salvation, that that day will come where we're freed from all evil. Asking for forgiveness and mercy for all the wrong we've done in this life and others. Asking for those who are near and dear to our hearts. Asking just that this energy flow through us and go to where it's needed. Asking for Mother Earth and every living thing on it. Taking up the faith that the good will prevail here on earth and in our lives. If we surrender to God and if we trust, well, not if, I'll say that when we surrender and trust, that helps the process go a lot more smoothly. Thank you so much to everyone for joining in. Thanks for the sweet emojis, everyone. And I wish you all a beautiful morning, afternoon, evening, and a day full of trusting in the good, trusting that all things serve the good, and recognizing that everything that occurs is a is a is a blessing. And sometimes it's a blessing, just a blessing, and sometimes it's a blessing opportunity, a learning opportunity. Sometimes it's a blessing, and sometimes it's a lesson. But it's always a blessing. Thank you so much for joining in. Take care. Much love.